Hello everyone and welcome to our final session of AP Human Geography Unit 1 with Mr. Elrod. Today we're going to end up by talking about map making technologies. This has really become something that's really very important to the field of geography because as I've been discussing through Unit 1, maps are really the way that geographers express themselves and express the data that they're studying. So that, again, it's not just about what is taking place, but it's also about where things are taking place. So really about the constructing of new and more accurate maps so that we can see the relationships between those events that are taking place. And so these new technologies are going to allow us to collect and store that information so that it then can be displayed at a later date. When we talk about data collection, there are really two ways that we categorize data, and this is really true of any sort of study. We have what's called primary data. This is the data that I myself go out and collect in the field, and again, this could either be through interviews, this could be through studies, this could be going out and just counting things, whatever it happens to be, and it can be qualitative or quantitative. I think maybe qualitative studies are maybe something a little bit newer. It's just something qualitative study is something that hasn't been as widely accepted in fields of academics, but you're seeing more and more of that, especially as geographers are moving into new fields of study. And of course, qualitative is the actual numbers that we can bring together and try to draw something from. Qualitative is more interviews and insights and feelings and thoughts about things in particular areas. So that's how those two are different. And then we have what's called secondary data. Now, a lot of geographers and teachers and things like myself will actually use a lot more secondary data because there are a lot of organizations out there that go and collect the data and then use it. Now, just like with any field of study, we have to be careful with who we are collecting who we're looking at for our secondary data. We want to try and find sources that are going to be honest in their presentation of information and their collection methods, going to be scientific and those types of things. And so a lot of times we'll try to find government sources, especially in the United States, use government sources, or we might try to find other international organizations, whether it's the International Monetary Fund, some may or may not like that, the World Bank. You can look at the United Nations, the World Health Organization, and there are a variety of others. But those are some of the big ones that we might look to for lots of different types of information. So whether we're talking about population statistics and data, whether we're talking about economic statistics and data, we really could learn a lot from any of those sources. So anyhow, those are the different forms of data that we can find. And so really, one of the more prominent forms of data display and map-making technologies that have come about is what's called GIS, or Geographic Information System. As far as I can tell, this seems to be one of the most important tools that geographers will use as they begin to study space. So basically what happens with GIS is that information is put into a program to be stored so that it can then be displayed on a map at a different date. And one of the more important elements of GIS is that information can actually be layered. And what I mean by that, and we'll see a graphic of it in a second, is that you bring together, almost like old transparencies that were on overhead projectors, is you take the information and you unite it together in one layer of information, one transparency sheet, if you will, and then you can lay them on top of each other so you can see if there is any relationship or if there's any connection between those two things that are going on. Because again, we're with the different maps and things, we want to look at one piece of information at a time, and then we try and relate it to others to see if there is any correlation. Okay. And again, one of the things that this does for us is it allows us to look at information and data and occurrences from a variety of different angles to see what are the relationships, because they're not always going to be relationships between different occurrences. And so when we look at GIS, this right here is just a graphic of GIS, and this is by no means the only type of layers of GIS, but this happens to be one of the landscape in a particular area. And so you see here you have the different layers. You have property lines, you have the water, the hydrology, forest cover, the soils, and then you could then actually pick and choose which different types of layers that you wanted and see how they relate to each other. Let's say you want to do land ownership and just hydrology, and you can see which properties included which properties had water on them. For whether whether you're talking about who's responsible for the maintenance of the water or keeping the water clean, or if there was some sort of contamination, whatever it happened to be. Or you could do something like soil and forest cover if you want to study the different soil types and maybe how that impacted the forest cover. So whatever happens to be. Again, this is just one example. Again, I might encourage you to go onto Google and look for maybe ArcGIS or the U.S. Census Bureau and look at a variety of the different types of maps that they have. One of the others that's maybe come into we maybe use a little bit more personally in our lives was GPS, or the Global Positioning System. Now, the Global Positioning System really helps us in that it allows us to get a much more accurate reading of where specific things are, so that we can then find them. Now, a lot of the GPS, and you'll see this in one of my review videos if you go watch it, the GPS technologies that we have in our car, that's not really a GPS. That's a way to display the points, and then the computer, the program, actually creates an algorithm or a logarithm that helps you to know how to get from one GPS point to another GPS point based on the information that it has. Again, we're looking at exact positions on the Earth, so we can understand where those different things are, and it's using that global grid that we talked about earlier in the unit. The lines of latitude and longitude helps us to get very specific with where things are in the world. And this is going to be using remote sensing, and also GPS or GIS can use remote sensing as well. And basically, what remote sensing is just collecting data about the Earth from satellites. And so, with the improvement of satellite technology, our ability to put satellites into space, not just governments, but individual companies and corporations putting satellites into space, so we can collect data and information about the Earth, so we can get more accurate statistics and readings on the Earth's surface. So that is going to be it for Unit 1. Thank you for watching. Hopefully we'll be coming out with Unit 2 here soon.